Call to order the January 20th meeting of the Iredell County Board of Commissioners. Before we have the invocation, I'd just like to mention, again, this week we had two servants of Iredell County pass. We had a 30-year-long employee in the finance department, Centralina Tabor, who passed away at Gordon Hospice House. She had a year-long battle with cancer. She was a tremendous contributor for 30 years to all of her fellow workers and to the business of this county. And so please remember Sabrina's family, her husband, Selwyn, and daughter, Cree, in the days ahead. Also, Jesse Crosswhite, who was a member of this commission from 1984 to 1990, the wife of Bill Crosswhite, local attorney who passed earlier in the year, also passed away and had services on Sunday. Jesse worked in a number of different capacities, to include at her husband's law office, and has passed on that service to the county to two of her sons who are practicing attorneys, one of whom is our resident Superior Court Judge, Joe Crosswhite. So we extend our sympathies and thoughts to the Crosswhite and Tabor families. Mr. Bowles, could you lead us in an invocation?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Bow with me, please. Our gracious Heavenly Father, we praise your name, Lord. We lift you up above all others. We thank you for the grace that you have extended to us, Lord. We lift up to you this evening the Tabor family, Lord. We pray that you would deal gently with them and comfort them in this time of loss. Lord, we ask that you lift up the Crosswhite family, Lord, and that you would be with them as they grieve. Thank you for the opportunity to decide the business of Iredell County. We ask that you would give us the wisdom of Solomon as we review these issues. In Jesus' holy and precious name, amen.
Amen. If you'll please rise and join us in the pledge to the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Mr. Smith, are there adjustments to the agenda?
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman. We have a few adjustments. Two things I'd like to add to the agenda. One is a closed session for economic development. It's under General Statute 143-318-11A4. And another closed session item for property acquisition at General Statute 143-318-11A5. We are also going to delete under administrative matters item C, and this had to do with the regional freight mobility study. That is a deletion. And the third change is to switch the two public hearings. We're going to switch the order of those tonight based on the number of folks that are here in attendance. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there a motion to adopt the agenda as adjusted?
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. The motion is made. Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Those opposed, like sign. Motion carries unanimously. Okay. Mr. Smith, would you please present the information concerning the awards for our county employees?
Thank you again, Mr. Chairman. I'm very proud of this group of 18, I think 17 here tonight, individuals. This is our second year of a training program that we have put into place, and it's a program that is meant to capture the talent that we have within our organization. Succession planning has become a major item of concern for me as the county manager, and every year when we talk to the county commissioners through our retreats. How are we going to replace the folks that are retiring out of our organization? We're over 1,000 people. And last year we started identifying those people within our departments that we could put our faith and time, effort, and money into training to hopefully give them opportunities within our organization, hopefully not outside, within our organization in years to come. So I'm very proud of these folks. This is a 12-week program. They take one day out of the week for 12 weeks, and believe it or not, it's only $8,500. It does not cost a lot, but it is such an investment in the people that we have that work for and with us. They go through everything from basic management skills to discipline to dealing with groups and figuring out how we all tick. So very beneficial, and again, I want to applaud them for their efforts. And I also want to thank Sandra Gregory and her staff in Human Resources, who put a lot of time into developing this program and implementing it, and missing our staff meeting every week for 12 weeks. So thank you, Sandra. And I think I'm going to go ahead and read the names out, and if you'll come up when I read your name. Deb Alford, she's the Assistant Finance Director. Ryan Anderson, Solid Waste Transfer Station Supervisor. Rachel Bowden, Animal Care Supervisor. Chesley Carter, Medical Lab Supervisor. Susan Cornell, Fiscal Administrative Services Supervisor. Terry Evans, Income Maintenance Caseworker. Wendy Freeman, Nutritionist. Michelle Hepler, Assistant Parks and Recreation Director. Heather Houston, Income Maintenance Caseworker. Tanya Landis, Operations Manager. Shannon Lester, Tax Program Specialist. Kimberly Meesamore, Environmental Health Supervisor. Carissa Plyler, Central Permitting Manager. Melissa Poteet, Senior Finance Technician. Daniel Reels, Transportation Operations Manager. David Salibi, Emergency Services Division Director. and Paul Webster, Emergency Management Planner.
Let's give everybody a great round of applause. You know, this is our next generation of leadership, and it's great to have a bench as deep as we have. And you are all going to be called upon in the near future to contribute the leadership techniques that you've honed and the experience that you've developed in your various positions to continue to improve the efficiencies and the effectiveness of all the services that Iredell County provides to its citizens. So thank you for your service and sacrifice, and you're going above and beyond the call of duty and taking on these additional responsibilities. Thank you. We will now proceed to the public hearings. Now declare a public hearing to be open on the proposed installment contract financing to refinance remaining debt obligations.
Thank you.
Robertson, would you please read the paragraph that describes the proposed refinancing?
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
The county is currently contemplating an installment contract financing pursuant to 16820 of the General Statutes of North Carolina to refinance all or the portion of the county's outstanding 2006 certificates of participation. It would be the remaining installments due on that. They're dated as of May 1st, 2006, with Iredell County Public Facilities Corporation, pursuant to which the county has financed certain public school improvements consisting of construction, acquisition, improvements, renovation, and equipping of North Iredell, West Iredell, Statesville High Schools, Sharon Elementary School, and Mooresville Intermediate School, and a secondary installment financing agreement dated as of March 1st, 2008, with the corporation where certain public school improvements consisting of construction, acquisition, improvement, renovation, and equipping of Celeste Hinkle Elementary School, East Iredell Elementary, Cloverleaf Elementary School, Shepherd Elementary School, South Iredell High School, Statesville High School, Rocky River Road Elementary School, and Mooresville Middle School. The acquisition of approximately 189-acre tract of land to provide for expansion of the county's solid waste disposal facility. The county would enter into a trust agreement pursuant to which the county would issue its limited obligation bonds to carry out an installment contract financing. The county would be obligated to pay debt service on the bonds in a principal amount not to exceed $105 million plus interest thereon. Such financing would be secured by a deed of trust on all or a portion of Statesville High School, Mooresville Intermediate School, Cloverleaf Elementary, South Iredell High School, Celeste Hinkle Elementary School, East Iredell Elementary School, and Mooresville Middle School, or certain of the properties acquired or improved under the installment financing agreements to be refinanced. together with all improvements and fixtures located and to be located thereon.
The notice, thank you very much. The notice of public hearing was published in the Statesville Record and Landmark on January 7th, 2015, and the Board of Commissioners will hear anyone who might wish to be heard on the proposed project or financing at this time. I do not see that anyone has signed up for a public hearing to be heard, but I will once again canvass those in the audience if you might have missed the opportunity to sign up. Would you please state your name, and if you could come up and state your name and address for the record, please.
Thank you very much, members of the board, Mr. Chairman. My name is Harry Grimmer. I have a house at the west end of the airport runway in Mooresville.
Mr. Grimmer, that matter is the second public hearing that we're going to have. And so this was simply to be heard concerning the refinancing of some bonds. But you will have an opportunity, along with a number of other folks, to share with us your concerns about this rezoning concerning the Lake Norman Airport in just a few minutes.
You said public hearings. I thought you wanted that. I was late coming in because
no problem.
Parking out there in the dark.
So there's no one else to be heard on the bond issue. I will declare this public hearing closed and advise that contingent upon there being no feedback from the public, that the commissioners have agreed at our pre-agenda meeting to place this matter on our consent agenda. We will now move on to the second public hearing, which I will declare to be open, on a hearing to consider a request from GA Airport LLC to rezone 6.21 acres at 129, 141, and 149 Yeager Road in Mooresville. Mr. Todd?
Good evening to the board. The request before us tonight is the property outlined in blue as you see on the screen. There's substantial history to this property, as several of you are familiar with. There's multiple rezonings out there that have occurred over the last 20-plus years. And tonight, again, it's the area outlined in blue, which does encompass essentially an area that's RA, residential agricultural, an area that's R20, an area that's straight M2, which is heavy industrial, as well as two different conditional use districts, industrial conditional use districts. Staff supports this request based on it would create one consistent zoning district for the entire property. This is a conditional zoning request, and there are limited uses requested, and it is site plan specific, so it should have a minimal impact on the adjacent properties. And the request will eliminate more intense uses currently allowed by right in two of the existing hangars. This is the horizon plan map showing the area to be low-density residential. You'll see Mooresville's got some planning jurisdiction just south of the property, and the surrounding area is also low-density residential. Here's an aerial of the property in which you can see the three existing hangars. This area back here that's asphalt now is the area that's currently zoned RA, residential agriculture, and R20. You do have some other existing hangars in the area, and then you've got residential uses and the runway adjacent to the properties. Here's the site plan that's been submitted by the applicant, showing the current development on the property. I will point out, again, this is site plan specific, so any changes to the site plan, if approved, would have to come back through a rezoning. The ordinance does allow a 10%, calls for a 10% change that the planning manager can make, but beyond that, it would come back through the same process if anything changed. For example, if they decided they wanted to try to add an additional building or add asphalt to what's shown here, it would have to come back through the process. Another site plan of the property, zoomed in a little bit. Again, one of the existing hangars on the property. The two hangars that are actually zoned straight industrial. The first hangar, this one is zoned conditional. These lines, just to help get a grasp again of those the zoning boundaries, essentially they're showing the existing zoning boundaries, again showing this little corner here that's a conditional district. You've got the straight here, you've got conditional over here, and then you've got some RA with R20 in that little corner. A few images from the property. And let me back up. That's the 129. That's the hangar that's zone conditional currently, the largest hangar. This is showing one of the straight, well, actually both the straight rezoning hangars, along with the asphalt that is behind the existing hangar that's currently zoned residential. That's just looking on down the runway, the edge of the property being about where this fence is, with the other hangar that's zoned straight industrial. This is looking at back actually toward Perth Road. You got Perth Road here, the entrance to the property right here on your right. Again, I will point out that the planning board heard this request and unanimously recommended approving this request in December. And I'd be happy to answer any questions from the board at this time.
Any questions from board members? Thank you, Mr. Todd. At this time, if the applicant would approach and state your names for the record, and for the benefit of everyone here, because there are attorneys that have been engaged on both for the applicant and for a number of concerned homeowners association. We have agreed to extend the comment period to 10 minutes for each of them to present their matters, and then to open up the floor for the standard 3-minute comment period for any individuals who would like to share their thoughts and concerns. In the interest of time, obviously, if some of your points are covered previously, then that will obviate the need to replow some of the same fields. So, Mr. Moritz?
Yes, sir. Good evening, Chairman Mallory and fellow commissioners. My name is Lee Moritz, Jr. I'm the marketing director for IMAX, representing GA Airport. With me tonight is Mr. Adge Hudson, our general counsel. I also have David Woodward, our facilities engineer, and also Miles Wright, who is a professional engineer prepared to site plan in case there's any questions there. Appreciate your time tonight. To provide a brief background, IMAX was founded in 2001 by Ron and Casey Howard, who are also the owners of GA Airport, as a disabled veterans business. Business model IMAX founded was proven on wireless technology, geolocation overseas, working on behalf of several U.S. government agencies. Originally founded in Denver, the business continued to grow until 2008 when we moved our headquarters to River Park Road in Mooresville, just really about 2 minutes from this facility. We also opened up an aviation division in Orlando, Florida in 2009. And then in the effort of trying to consolidate our businesses, our CEO made the decision to move the Florida operation in 2012 to North Carolina so it can consolidate and be one cohesive company. So we did that. We were entertained. We entertained Hickory, Statesville, Concord, and Lincolnton, all with attractive offers. However, we selected this particular site because of the close proximity to our headquarters. Initially, we leased space at the airfield from Mr. Robert Youngblood, who owned the facility, and we were fine with that. And then at some point in time, he came to us and said that he wanted to sell the property. So we had to make a decision at that time to entertain purchasing the property or risk the new landlord making us find a new home. So that brings us where we are tonight. Our business model is to take agricultural aircraft minus the spray equipment, and our team equips the aircraft to perform a border surveillance mission. All of our customers are approved by the U.S. government, and we work very closely with other countries overseas to fight against global terrorism. Our company is majority of veterans, and we believe very strongly in what we do. And we're doing it here in Iredell County. We feel like we're making a difference in the world. The integration process is very similar to an audio shop for an automobile. We are not a manufacturer. Our aircrafts are built in Albany, Georgia, and all the components that we install into the aircraft are built somewhere else. So I wanted to make that point. The process takes approximately 35 days to convert an agricultural aircraft into what we branded and called the Archangel. Currently, a significant portion of this property carries an unrestricted M2 classification. This property can be used for any of 224 approved uses by the county. And we feel like many of those uses would detract and affect negatively the surrounding neighbors. What we're offering tonight is to downzone 2/3 of our property to a more restricted M2 conditional use. We started off with 65 uses. We met with your county planning team, and we dropped that to 42. We had the public hearing. We heard what the public was saying. We dropped it to 38. So basically, we're offering tonight 17% of the approved uses that we have now. Whereas our desire for this property is to always remain aviation, the truth-based facts is that the future of general aviation is challenging at best, given the unstable fuel cost, replacements for leaded fuel, the decreasing private pilot population, short runway at Lake Norman, and potential user fees and other costly aircraft. Anyone operating these hangars primarily or solely for aircraft storage, fuel cells, and flight training would not be profitable, as found out very quickly by the previous owner. Simply put, we are agreeing to downzone 2/3 of the property, but we must maintain a limited amount of options to maintain market flexibility in the future. We are asking tonight that you consider approving this opportunity to make this parcel one uniform zoning, while at the same time restricting many of the uses allowed by the straight M2.
I believe Matthew did a very good job of covering the present zoning conditions on Lake Norman Airport, where you have the M2 conditional here, the M2 unrestricted, and then a tidbit of M2 conditional over here, and then a residential right here. As Lee said, our goal is to bring down to a uniform zoning across the entire parcel, which will cover the developed portion, that is, all of this to the same M2 conditional uses. Something I believe that's worth noting is that our property line is right here and right here. We do not control access to the runway in the same way that the HOA may, nor do we control access to this taxiway or walking trail that the HOA has in the same way that they do. And one of the things that we'd like to do here is give some viability to these facilities should something happen here, which we do not control, whether it's a financial upkeep of that runway or whether it's some sort of damage to the real estate here, such as a water mudslide or something that we don't have responsibility or the ability to control the repair of, that we're able to continue our business model. Our business model does not allow for delay. We have obligations to our customers which are substantially restrictive and expensive to us if we do not fulfill our obligation. And that's what our goal is here, and we appreciate your time.
With that, gentlemen, we'll entertain any questions.
Any questions for the applicants? Thank you very much, Mr. Moritz.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. At this time, I believe Mr. David Parker is representing a number of different homeowners and homeowners association.
Andrew, can you come set me up, please? Thanks. Sorry, I need help. Thanks. Gentlemen of the commission, I'm David Parker. I live on Normandy Road, which is in this same neighborhood. I want to thank staff to start with for helping me set this up and giving me the parameters for this screen and letting me know how to go. I've used a fairly hokey device this evening of stoplights, red, green, and yellow, to talk about this project. Two of y'all have heard extensively about this project. I was before you representing Tom Wilson in 2004. Staff recommended a rezoning of the property, a less intensive rezoning than you have before you this evening, and this commission voted 5-0 to reject that request, notwithstanding the staff's approval. I've got 3 points to make tonight, and they're up here. I'm going to see if this gadget works, and yes, I can actually use it. Number one is maintain the residential character. You've already seen the 2030 Horizon Plan. I'm going to talk about that in a moment. And I've addressed the 2004 vote. Number two, why these are all labeled number one, I don't know. But number two is permit the airport to expand its actual aviation commercial carve-out uses. What you just heard from these fine gentlemen is not anything except there's only one part of it that we object to. We're fine with the uses that they want to put in. We're actual uses. We're fine with their business model. We're just fine with all of that. The thing that concerns me is the phrase, should something happen to their business, because that is speculative. Number three, permit GA Airport only those conditional uses for which the airport has firm development plans. That's right out of the ordinance. I'll show you that in a moment. And that could not exist but for that airstrip. Now, remember, this is an area where it's residential. You see that green light? That green light, those are the uses we want to give the green light to. And I'll go through those in a moment, and I'll have a handout. Matthew will do that when I tell him to. Not quite ready, because they'll read that instead of paying attention to me. So here's where we want to talk about the 2030 Horizon Plan, watershed, which now has been fixed, and what you did in 2004. Here's your horizon plan. It's a yellow light. Be careful. Don't mess with your overall large area plan. Here's the detail on it. And sure enough, right in here, I don't know if you can see that little dot or not, it's small, but right in here is the airport. Now, it is surrounded by residential. This parcel here, this is an area that Jeff Cernuto is going to ask y'all to let Mooresville have to zone because he wants to put 70 houses in there. This area that's right in here beside Perth, this is zoned multifamily by the town of Mooresville. This is much more intensive than the uses that we had in 2004. Many more houses have been built along this road, particularly back in this area, and there have been some in here and a few teardowns here and replacements. So this is your general idea. We're going to have this residential. But there's an exception. That exception is the historic carve-out. Watershed, I'm not going to deal with. They've got all of about 20 or 30,000, William, what was it, 30,000 feet to go? About half an acre that they can still pave, it looks like. This is 2004. This is when y'all, as a body, looked at this. Only 2 of you own this board, but you've looked at this before. And in this area here, this is what Tom Wilson asked for. And see this map down here in the bottom? It's the same buildings. This is the large hangar. It's zoned right now sort of a passive hangar use. Regardless of what they're using for, we're not alleging zoning violations tonight. This is not the time or the place. But also to park behind what we call the maintenance hangar. This is exactly what they're asking for tonight. They want to upzone this. They want to upzone this. And they want to use this for the existing uses, which makes a lot of sense. It should be consistent. They're absolutely right. The amazing thing is that right in here, Tom asked for office rental for aviation-related businesses in the large hangar. He asked for shop office rental for avionics installation. Does that sound familiar? It sounds just like the integration that Lee described for you, that IMAX is doing. Same idea, just a little bit, not quite as sophisticated back in 2004. And he wanted to do a hangar rental for the installation of the avionics. So what did y'all do? You voted 5-0 to reject that. After staff said, oh, that's fine, do it. You voted 5-0 to reject it. Not asking you to do that again. The neighbors are not asking that. And I will say to the neighbors here assembled, if I've made a point, please try not to repeat it when you come up here, because I promised these good folks that we wouldn't drone on repetitiously. There is a carve-out. Now, here's something that's interesting that doesn't get talked about. Who owns the airstrip? The Lake Norman Airpark Owners Association owns the airstrip. In other words, these good folks, their business plan involves using a residential airstrip that they do not own. Mr. Johnson, I know you're something of an expert on the Statesville Airport, and you know the ownership model out there. This is a very different model. This is like folks that own their own golf course, but they let the public come in and play rounds on it. So how does this work? The history you've got in your packet. You see that purple area down there? That started in 1985. This little area down here. This is before conditional zoning. Mr. Pope, I'm not sure on my dates there, but I think conditional zoning was something that came in after 85, as I recall. You took the airport in 1987. That blue area is the airstrip, and you said just use that for airstrip. Then in 1990, Tom Wilson added the hangars, including the hangars next door. Mr. Mallory, I think in the pre-agenda meeting you had a question about the hangars next door. They're zoned for passive hangar use. And then, of course, in 2004, you said no. We don't want to do that. We're not going to extend this use anymore. We're going to protect this neighborhood. We're not asking you to give a red light to this project. That was 2004. Even though 2 of you voted to give a red light to any kind of expansion of commercial use in 2004, we are not asking you 2 gentlemen, Mr. Norman and Mr. Johnson, to vote the same way tonight. But you may have to, and that's a sad fact. In 1996, the homeowners took title to the airstrip. Now, IMAX has come before you. 3 of y'all voted on this. Mr. Robertson, I believe you made the motion. to grant them $75,000 as a matching grant to the NC1 program. I applaud your foresight in doing that. I think it's a good use of the taxpayers' money, and it's something that you endorse. But here's the fun thing about this. When they came before you, they wanted to do aircraft and integration operation in Iredell County. That was their business plan. You heard from Mr. Moretz tonight. That is their business plan. This is going to be relevant. Mr. Pope was kind enough to lead me to the correct zoning ordinance. That's going to be real relevant in a little bit. Here's your minutes where Mr. Robertson made the motion, and Mr. Johnson and Mr. Norman voted in a 5-zip vote to approve that. That was a good thing, but it does not give them carte blanche to do anything that they want, particularly in an area like this, which your plan says is residential. We want you to allow conditional uses where GA Airport has firm plans. Now, why is that relevant? It's out of your statute. Under 11.6, and Ms. Pope, thank you again for sending me to the right place, they have to have a firm development proposal. Pass out, if you would, those sheets there. Everything you see that's green lighted is part of their firm development proposal. We have no problem with any of those uses, even though they are greater than what you denied Dr. Wilson back in 2004. And if you'll look in your packet, you got part of that 2004 information tonight at your pre-agenda meeting. Under 11.6, number A, and I know no one likes to read from up there. When I was up there on the school board and people would tell me to read, I always despised it, but I'm going to read it and made it nice and big anyway. A conditional zoning district is not intended for securing speculative zoning for a proposal, but rather is based on a firm development proposal, not a, gosh, if something bad happens proposal. And that's our problem tonight. They don't have firm plans to develop the property. You've got the handout there in front of you. Flip over to page 2 if you would, and you'll see the red lights. There's nothing firm about anything on the red light list. If you flip back to the green light page, everything on there is firm. So let's look at their application. What do they ask for? Now, this is intriguing to me because they are truthful people. I believe them absolutely. They're good people. Don't misunderstand me for a moment. I'm not demonizing these folks at all. We want them to succeed. They are right. The commercial node needs to succeed. But here's what they've said. Current land use of property, aviation operations, and these uses that are here. Why do you need this? This is on their zoning application. It's in your packet. GA Airport does not require rezoning the property. But we do believe that establishing uniform zoning makes sense. But flipped over to the next page, page 3, where I got this. They want zoning that supports the businesses that are presently using the property. Stop. That's what conditional zoning is. Current uses and uses that will be put into place in the next 18 months. I didn't put it in here, but your own code says if they haven't made progress in 18 months, it comes back before you. You've got to go through this whole thing again if they don't make progress. So these speculative uses, page 2 there, that red list, like the race shop, they're not going to put a race shop in 18 months. If you zone that in and neighbors say, hey, you got to put it back on in 18 months, you're going to be hearing this again, I do believe. And here's what they really want. They want zoning that is broad enough to allow for long-term economic viability. Well, don't we all? I mean, I'm a developer myself. I would love to rezone for all the things I've got in mind and things that might happen in the future if I need them. So why does this matter? And why does the application matter? In your own ordinance, 9.2.1, under H, you've got to give an approximate completion time for a project or a phase. There is no race shop phase because they're not planning on doing that. They don't have firm plans for that. They don't want to leave. They want to be right here. Your board decisions are supposed to be based under 9.2.3. Your decisions are based on the actual use or uses intended for the property. And I would ask you to ask those good people if they intend to use any of those red light districts. Speaking of which, that's one of the M2 permitted purposes, not in Iredell County, but adult establishments are allowed in M2. Of course they didn't ask for that. That's not going to work. Look on page 1, if you would. These are the green light sections. Look on page 2. These are the red lights. Why do we care about those? Because down at the bottom, only those conditions mutually agreed upon by the Board of Commissioners and the applicant with input from the public, that would be my clients, may be incorporated into the conditional zoning district. Here's the dilemma. If you want them to reduce their uses and just go down to the green light, they don't have to say yes. They can just say, no, 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 vote it up or down. And these are good people. They must think you're going to vote it up, unless they're willing to take these uses off. Now, if you look at the detail in these uses, what you see are things that don't fit. You remember your Horizon 2030 plan? Residential, that's your default option, unless someone can show good cause to do something different. That good cause would be historic, aviation-related, and businesses, Mr. Chairman, where you would not locate the business there but for the airstrip, and where the airstrip is necessary for your business. So, for instance, IMAX needs to file these planes in and then work on them. Great place for it. Not such a great place for, oh, let's look up here and see. Boat dealers, sales and repair. Do you need a landing strip for that? No, they can locate somewhere where you've already said is commercial. How about ambulance services? Do they really need to run ambulances out of there? I don't think so. Air ambulances are incidental to the use that they've got currently. Dance studios in schools? Really? You need a running way for that? How about race shops? This is a red flag for these neighbors. A race shop. Is it convenient to be able to take an engine from the race shop, put it on a plane, and fly it to the race? Yes. But can you truck it to the nearest airport almost as easily? Yes. You don't have to have a runway in order to have a race shop. All you have to do, Mr. Robertson, you live down in Mooresville, you know what it's like to go down Gasoline Alley. They got plenty of race shops. No runway. You don't have to have a runway. So this is a residential area. Look at these uses, these red uses, and contrast them with green. Green, everything makes sense. School, specialty training. Now, there's a little caveat in here. I've got this in red saying fixed wing only. Mr. Johnson, you, I'm sure, recall the debate that went on down there about helicopter instruction. Mr. Bowles, you're a Mooresville resident. You may have heard about people complaining about teaching folks how to fly helicopters down there. Neighbors really would like that limited fixed wing instruction only, and that's why it's on both lists. Go back to your green list. Automobile parking lots and facilities for permitted uses in the district makes perfect sense. Of course they should do that. Equipment repairs, light. That's what Mr. Moretz is describing their business as being. Aircraft and parts, yes. Airports or air transportation facilities. Remember how I mentioned the air ambulance? Makes sense. It's right in there. You don't need a ground ambulance service. You don't need a taxi stand. Measurement, analysis, and control instruments, that's what they're putting in. Of course that's okay. Incidental services, research, development, or testing services is what they're doing. That is your green light. I've run through my time, and I appreciate your tolerance. Mr. Mallory, I've been watching judges for years, and when I see the raised eyebrow, I know I'm about done. If y'all have any questions, I'll be glad to take them.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Parker. Are there any questions, Mr. Parker, at this point?
You said if we pass this with conditional use provisions, then if in 18 months none of those have been exercised, we have to review this again.
Yes.
Okay. Yet.
That's in L of 11.6. Here's what it says, and Mr. Smith's the expert on this.
Mm-hmm. My question is if we were to approve everything that is, and maybe Mr. Pope can answer, if we were to approve this and exclude the red, include the green, would that not be the same problem if one of these green uses wasn't being promoted or acted upon within the next 18 months?
Mr. Robinson, I would submit they're doing all the green things right now. You don't have to worry about that, with all due respect.
If you took what Mr. Parker said literally, you're correct. Staff doesn't interpret the ordinance that way.
How does the staff interpret the ordinance then?
Get Mr. Todd.
The 18th month provision that's put in the code, and I can read it specifically if Andrew will flip to that section. It's, if I remember right, it leaves the option for staff to decide to bring it back before the board. It doesn't mandate that it come back, doesn't mandate that you do anything with it, but it gives us the option. Several years ago, the board approved a conditional zoning Bethesda Road. They've never done anything. We've looked into bringing that one back because that's what the ordinance says, but it does not say that we have to bring it back. The plan, well, let me back up. No sooner than 18 months after the date of approval of the petition, the planning director shall examine the progress made toward developing the property in accordance with the approved petition and any conditions attached to the approval. If the planning director determines that progress has not been made in accordance with the approved plan and conditions, the planning director shall forward to the Board of Commissioners a report, which may recommend that the property revert back to the previous zoning classification in accordance with the procedure set forth in section 11.3. So again, it's just, it would work to the point where we could bring it back before you, but then based on the current conditions, you could act on something and revert it back or leave it as is.
What you just read said, you shall and we may. Correct?
Right.
Shall means you must do it?
Shall would mean bring it back.
So then at 18 months?
Well, and then of course you get into the interpretation, and I'll go ahead and speak in regards to that. But the firm development plans, for those that have been on the board a while, you'll remember under the conditional use process, which was quasi-judicial, no site plan was necessarily required with that process. Sometimes they submitted a site plans, but a lot of times what we got on those type of requests would be a list of 100 uses saying they want to do these uses, and they were going to offer up conditions of not operating after 10 o'clock, adding additional 10 feet to the 30-foot buffer requirement, just a list of any type of conditions. No site plan. We didn't know how they would develop the property. If they were going to put all the development on this side or over here. We were planning board staff, board of commissioners, didn't know how it was going to develop. There were no firm plans in place, just a list of uses. When we changed to the conditional zoning, which is permitted by statutes, we decided to insert in there that we wanted a site plan up front. So we would have a firm idea how the property was going to develop. We've been practicing it for a number of years that somebody can request multiple uses and pick one use and do that use for now with the option of switching over if that business fails or they move somewhere else and a new business comes in. The idea being not having to come back in every time a business fails, seeing that does happen, unfortunately, in the county. So, staff's interpretation and the history of where we came from with conditional zoning was to have a firm plan in place, a site plan, that conceptual site plan that shows you how the property is going to develop. It didn't hinge as much on the uses specifically. It was more hinging on providing to us and you guys a specific site plan so you can make a determination on a rezoning.
Mr. Robertson, may I respond to that? May I respond to that, Mr. Mallory?
Yes.
Mr. Robertson, you are exactly right. They shall bring it back to you. You may do with it as you see fit, period.
Commissioner, may I respond to that?
Yes.
I believe it's important to note that what Mr. Todd is pointing out is very clear. We have a site plan which shows how that property is developed. We're requesting uses which may be on that developed plan. We cannot build beyond that. We cannot do any expansion whatsoever that's not on that site plan. It's no different than, say, a shopping center where you may have different uses. You don't have any business plan for who goes in there other than I'm sending a business interview, whether it's a dance studio or whether it's a police substation, which is something that we have set up over there at our facility. But it is a use which fits that facility which is in place at this time. And that's how we interpret it. And we support the planning staff's interpretation of that staff ordinance.
Are there any other questions or comments from board members?
Mr. Mallory, may I respond to that very briefly like I did the previous one?
Yes, briefly.
The buildings are not laid out as to which use they could each be put. They could put a dance studio in the upzoned large hangar area or a race shop. It's a great race shop building. They won't be limited. And under this paragraph down here, you can't go through and cherry pick uses unless they consent.
Mr. Todd, I have a quick question for you. Is in two of the buildings, they're already zoned N2.
Correct.
So all of the uses outlined in red are permissible in those buildings currently. Is that correct?
Currently, yes.
It's just the one building that's the conditional use as well as the RA zoned piece that's behind the two N2 buildings that really are the issues here relative to conditional use.
Yes. Now again, the request is to bring everything under the same uniform conditions,
Right.
but as it exists currently, that is correct.
Are there any further questions of either Mr. Parker or Mr. Moritz or staff? Mr. Todd? I think at this point we will go ahead and open the floor up for comments from individuals who signed up. And if you did not have an opportunity to sign up on the sheet, if I don't call your name and you do want to be heard, please line up, and when you approach, please state your name and your address. These are 3-minute duration, and then we will conduct some more discussion. Deborah Dennis.
Hi, I'm Debbie Dennis. I'm the past president of the Lake Norman Homeowners Association, current secretary. I have a degree in aviation management from Auburn University, War Eagle. I'm a pilot, 25 years as an air traffic controller, 6 years as an FAA consultant. My husband and I bought at Lake Norman Air Park about 3 years ago. We love it there, and we bought assuming that it would always be general aviation, as did many of the other residents there, especially the ones that are right across from the commercial area looking at it. I guess we just never pictured anything else would go in there, so we're kind of surprised by all this. At this point, general aviation is not dying at 14 Alpha. When IOMAX came in, which is fine, I don't have a problem with IOMAX, when Mr. Youngblood was there, 17 airplanes were pushed out of one hangar, 3 airplanes were pushed out of another hangar. They had to find places in Statesville, Concord, Lincolnton, and even some in Hickory. So there are still airplanes looking for ramp space and hangar space. It's at a premium. Whenever somebody leaves, somebody jumps right in there. We had a gentleman just put a contract on a house in Lake Norman Air Park because he's been waiting for a long time to get a hangar there. So he buys the house and has another friend who's been waiting for a hangar, and he's going to put the airplane in that hangar. We have students, a lot of new students are coming in asking to learn to fly. The flight school needs more airplanes and more instructors, just about for lately the number of pilots that have come in. I do want to talk about the safety and security. If you look up here, this is the road to get into the GA Airport property. That road is also a taxiway. It's the only access to that property. So you have moving aircraft, you have people as a walk path, and it's also the road. So it's very dangerous if you are inviting the general public to come in, such as a dance studio, and all the mothers and the kids come in at the same time and there's a recital. And the people from like IMAX, whoever's there at this aviation, they know to wait for the airplane. They'll sit and wait. Now, if you have a mother dragging a child that's late for class, they may not know and try to go around that airplane. So we just have to be really careful what general public we're inviting in there. Security, I've already stopped a couple cars thinking it's the roadway to continue. That goes from here up to this taxiway goes to the runway. I've already had to stop a couple people. They said, well, I'm going to the end of the road. I said, well, that's not the road. So that's why I'm really concerned about some businesses that go in there. Economic development, if a business goes in there and they don't allow any other airplanes in there, then we have somebody coming to visit a business in Mooresville and they can't. They won't have a place to put their airplane on the ramp. So you're closing off, to open up one business, you're closing off other businesses in Mooresville. And I guess I ran out of time. And I didn't make the main points.
Thank you, Ms. Dennis.
Okay. If there's any more time, I have a couple more minutes.
My understanding that the runway is not compatible, that they can't teach pilot training there?
Yeah, what they do is they take off there and they go to Statesville or Lincolnton for the basic training, learning to land, take off and land, because the runway's short there. Now, once they learn and they go out and they do their pre-solos and they get used to the landings there, then they come back and they solo at Lake Norman. But there's a lot of people interested in flying there. It's kind of picking up lately. Any other questions?
Thank you, Ms. Dennis. Russell Jones.
I'm Russell Jones. It's on the list. I'm at 362 Normandy. We're kind of non-air park neighbors. Our house is actually almost at the end of the runway. Matthew, could I get you to put that current zoning map up? While he's doing that, I want to stand and face these guys because I think they've got an interesting business. I think they're being successful at it. I think we want to support you with what you're doing. But I really want that understood. There's some hard feelings.
If we have comments, could you speak into the microphone, because we do need to, this is being broadcast and it's also for recording purposes. Thank you.
I just want to kind of recast some of the facts. So if you look at this map, they said they're downzoning 2/3 of the property. That means that they have 3 hangars and 2 of the hangars are being downzoned. Well, if you look at it from a square footage of hangar perspective, it's about 50-50. So it's an equal trade. If you look at this map and look at it from a square footage in terms of the property, it's considerably more than 50% of the property is being upzoned. So I just want to kind of recast that statistic and that fact. I kind of got 3 summary points to make. Because I have a question which has just been bothering me through hearing after hearing after hearing. And the more I learn about this, the more I have questions about it. This request seems to be inconsistent with the historic use of the property, the vision of the developers, and the vision and uses within the neighborhood. Point number 2, it is inconsistent with your own 2030 plan. I've read through parts of the plan. I've looked at the zoning. This request, especially the upzoning, is highly inconsistent with that. It's inconsistent as far as I'm concerned. I'm not a lawyer, but I've read through these statutes. It's inconsistent with the statutes. Speculative use for future resale of the property, which is what they've talked about, appears to me from a statutory perspective to be not allowed. And the last piece of this is it also appears inconsistent with what the public wants, the public being these neighbors. There's about 90 families on Normandy Road. From what we can tell, the majority of them do not want this. We polled them. There are 2 other homeowners associations. At least the majority doesn't want it. They don't want this stuff in our neighborhood. So my question is kind of rhetorical at this point, but I would ask you to consider, if this was in your neighborhood, what would you be doing? And ask yourself, why would you grant this request? It just doesn't make any sense to me. And again, we don't oppose their use of the property for their business model and the business that they're proposing to do. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Craig Upshaw.
Thank you for hearing me, gentlemen. My name is Craig Upshaw. I live at 120 Grand Bay Drive. I'm the president of the Grand Bay Owners Association. We're the neighborhood directly to the north of the airpark. We really have 3 things that we feel very deeply about this. First off, we feel that restricting the facilities at the airpark is going to have a negative economic impact on southern Iredell County. There's been a study done by a UNC professor that was published by the National Association of Realtors in November, talking about airport access was the most important thing that any commercial property could have. And we feel that if all of the hangars are taken up by other uses, that's going to hurt the economic development possibilities for southern Iredell. The second thing is this property is has 2 large schools located within a mile. And we would not like to see any kind of manufacturing located that close to schools. So that's our second concern. And our third is we'd like to stay within the 2030 plan. We feel it's a good plan, and we'd like to see residential dominate this part of the county. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Upshaw. Ron Hofer.
Good evening. My name's Ron Hofer. I live at 122 Lindbergh Lane, which is on Lake Norman Air Park. I am the current president of the Lake Norman Air Park Owners Association, and I am here to oppose the application for rezoning made by GA Airport. However, all of the points, let me just say that the last few weeks, a few months, we have tried to negotiate with GA Airport to come up with a reasonable list of things, uses that we could agree to, that they could agree to, and this is as far as we got. So unfortunately, it's my understanding that your vote has to be either to, unless they'll change their request, you have to either vote it up or down, which I think is unfortunate since I don't think either one of those outcomes is what would be the best situation. But other points I was going to make have been well made by the previous presenters, so I'll stop with this.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Hofer. And Ralph, and I honestly am going to have difficulty with this last name, Oscillator? or Deslater. His handwriting's as good as mine. Ralph at 22942. Okay. Okay. Tom and May Frost. Good. Thank you. Roland and Edith Trinkler. Same
thing with me. Everything is forward with the
Okay. Thank you. Brett Law.
I'm sorry, sir.
So did you just sign up for the public comment period? Okay. All right. Thank you. Twilla Ryan. Okay. Rob Porter.
Good evening. I'm Rob Porter of 123 Rutan Court. Mr. Parker did not want to get into any compliance issues. That's what I'm here to address. The property at 149 Yeager is not in compliance with a 2002 zoning agreement for an isolation buffer to homes adjacent to the commercial activity. That 2002 agreement states a 6-foot earthen berm with a 5-foot attractive wooden fence with plantings on both sides in the L-shaped area around the 149 Yeager tarmac. And so the tarmac in question is this little piece up here. This would be the short leg of the L. This would be the long leg of the L. The longer leg of the L is in compliance with that agreement. However, the short leg of the L does not have an earthen berm, does not have a wooden fence. It's a chain link fence with cypress trees on either side. So I don't understand how that interpretation could be varied to make them think that they're in compliance currently. This needs to be completed. We need noise and groundwater protection to the properties that are at the top of Rutan Court. This affects 3 properties. This is the cul-de-sac of Rutan Court. This is my parcel 123, and then these are the 2 as of yet developed properties out of Rutan Court. Would like to buffer for noise abatement and to protect against any fuel spills or anything like that from leaching into the groundwater. We're all downstream of the tarmac at 149 Yeager. And as previously mentioned, I would like to add that aviation and other uses simply do not mix. We get a race shop in here, it's only a matter of time before somebody decides to joyride the equipment down the runway and, generally just wreak havoc in a residential area. That's all I have. Any questions?
Thank you, Mr. Porter. Jake Atterbury.
Yes, my name is Jake Atterbury. I'm a 20-year resident of the Lake Norman Air Park. I would like to ask you to oppose the rezoning request as presented to you. When we had the rezoning request 13 years ago, and then the previous one 11 years ago, from depending on a year or so in between, jet fuel sale was restricted specifically at that request. The planning board allowed us the language for 100 low-lead aviation fuel only. Now we've found out that evidently that was only a parcel of the land when everyone started re-examining all the language from that original agreement. We'd still like to be protected with the no jet fuel sales there. That would allow for helicopter maintenance bases in the future or anything along that line. I don't have any problem with the jets that they operate themselves, but yet the sale of jet fuel could invite another traffic level to our airport that would be very challenging for us. The Lake Norman Air Park should not be allowed to economically impact the Statesville Municipal Airport. Another portion of that jet fuel sales would be that it should be done at Statesville, where the longer runway. The current zoning allows them to be economically viable at this time. Just because the M2 exists, it is not the most valuable M2 due to the constrictions of close proximity to residential areas and the lack of public water and sewer services. At the time of the neighborhood public hearing and at the planning board hearing, they said that their business would not change if it did not get approved. They would just have to do it in the other structures that are there, and that they would have to remove wings from an aircraft. So that's where we come up with their telling us that they're economically viable right now. So that's all I have for you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Atterbury. And finally, Jim Slate.
Thank you very much for hearing me. My name is Jim Slate. I'm at 172 Catawba Road. As you can see, coming down the entranceway to get to this property, you continue down Catawba Road and it dead ends at a cul-de-sac. We are the very last house at 172 Catawba Road. One of the things that has bothered me listening to all the various conversations is we've started talking about business models, economic viability. Is this just another corporation? What are their plans for the future here? Does it include general aviation? Again, as a lot of people have told you guys, automotive parking lots, we talked about boat dealers. What does that have to do with general aviation? Nothing. So the non-aviation businesses don't really mix well with airports. You've heard that before. You heard a lot of people talk about it here. There's only certain roads going into this facility. That also includes there's only certain roads going into Catawba Road, which, believe it or not, how does that affect this zoning? Well, it affects me. It affects everybody down Catawba Road. When folks come down to look at this property, a lot of times, the majority of times, newcomers come right down Catawba Road. At the very end, it's a private road. It's a road that has to be maintained by the individuals there. They come down the road, they turn around, a lot of times they ask, hey, where's such and such a business? We have to point. Just yesterday, for example, a couple came in and started driving all over the common area. It wasn't one car, it was 2 cars. I had to go out to the common area and say, hey, wait a second, you're driving up on the common area, do you know where you are? Do you live here? And it was, no, we just wanted to look around. So the facility's not really set up for traffic. Again, aviation and cars don't really mix, but that's what we have to work with here. So I'm not sure how to proceed here. I'm just going to say this is an air park. This is my home. This isn't a commercialized airport. This is an airport, an air park, that gets funded by all the residents there. We have to pay for the property. We have to pay for all the upkeep. Now, the businesses down there, we don't want them to fail. But the reality is there's no maintenance shop down there now. There used to be. We have fuel down there, but it's a lot higher now. So a lot of the folks go elsewhere. Some of the planes, as you heard, were displaced. So again, we don't want IOMAX to fail, but at the same time, does that really help general aviation? Does that help the future? How long are they going to be there? And if we're not careful in proceeding with what we write on a piece of paper here, this could blow up in our face, and then the Homeowners Association of Lake Norman Air Park is going to be stuck again in front of you guys in the future talking about this again. So all I'm going to ask you is this. Just proceed with caution. And there's the Mooresville is growing. The airport, 14 Alpha can benefit a lot of the town. A lot of people come in, as you heard, to visit. And I think it brings in businesses. It brings in traffic. This is a good thing for the town. But at the same time, again, if you would, just proceed with caution here because it affects my home, our homes. That's it.
Thank you, Mr. Slate.
Thank you, sir.
Now, I believe there may have been a couple of additional folks that had come in that didn't have an opportunity to sign up. Sir, if you just come up and state your name and address.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. Apologize for breaking in at the wrong point before. My name is Harry Grimmer. I have a place at 350 Normandy Road, right across where the airplanes take off at the airport. I bought it 10 years ago. I'm not a full-time resident at Sourdale County, but I am a full-time taxpayer. And I bought it about 10 years ago, and that airport was much more residential than it is now. And the interesting thing, as this saga has gone on, I've attended a number of these meetings, and it's all been, without saying so, it's all been about money. Tom Wilson, 30 years ago, that was a dirt runway when some of my neighbors built their houses. And he bought it, developed it, as you well know. He developed it with a amenity package just like Crescent Land with Duke Power would develop the Point on Brawley Scoot Road, and at some point give the golf course and the clubhouse to the owners. He deeded the airport runway and common open space to the homeowners association, but he kept the clubhouse. He kept the hangars. Since that time, the homeowners association and the owners of hangars have had a real problem. Tom Wilson crashed his plane. Robert Youngblood bought the estate, and I caught early 2013 guys cutting trees down in the 100 zone, 100-foot buffer zone. It's been there about 25 years, and had a number of meetings with Joe Waskowski, Matthews, Todd about that issue, and with Mr. Youngblood. Bottom line is, at some point, he sold enough people, the North Carolina Historic Foundation that had given him close to $1 million tax credit to deed the common open space and put it in conservation. He's had convinced enough of my neighbors to cut the trees down according to a plan that had been approved by the planning director that allowed 10% maintenance per year. And he told me, well, if I had my brothers, I'd rather go in there and clear cut it. And that's exactly what he did. In the process, in early 2013, he entered a lease agreement with IMAX for that building. They operated almost a year before the planning director, Mr. Todd, ever cited them or ever issued a directive as whether or not they were operating illegally. And then he entered into an agreement to sell the property to him, which he did about 6 months after he got the trees cut down. And the trees were a problem due to FAA's instrument approach license. It didn't solve the problem. They still don't have that for the night landing, I understand. But, you know, my neighbors didn't give the lakeside people much support for the devaluation of their property. But fair is fair. And what Tom Wilson did, not deeding them the clubhouse, what Youngblood did in convincing people to cut the trees down, and what IMAX is doing, asking for this rezoning after they bought the property and before they really had a directive or understanding as to whether they could operate in it. If you listen to their hot buttons, they're saying, we need these changes in case we don't have any plans to, but in case we ever decide to relocate. Now, the hot button is, if they skip, because they need more marketing, if you give them this zoning, if you don't turn the petition down, period, the first thing that could happen is they sell the facility. And the people, my neighbors in the neighborhood, in Air Park, don't have the facility anymore to service their planes on site. And they bought and built their houses to do that. So I'm here. They didn't support me, but I'm here to support them and request that you consider not passing the petition, period. And number one. And number two, that you ask the planning director to issue a new directive as to whether they're operating correctly in there, and a new directive on whether or not they violated the tree buffer area, because they never notified anybody that they had an alternative to address that issue by going through the zoning board of adjustment. And they won't listen to you if it's 30 days after their directive. So we would like that to be done, but I would suggest that you consider not passing the zoning at all. Thank you very much.
Could I get your last name again?
Grimmer, Grimmer, Harry. 350 Normandy Road.
Thank you. Is there anyone else that would like to be heard? Come on up. Okay, if you could come up to the mic.
All my questions have been answered. Just for the record.
Oh, okay. Okay, thank you very much. Last call. Okay, are there, yes, ma'am, go ahead.
Microphone, please.
I guess I'm a little confused with the site plan specific. Does that mean just where the buildings are? It also means the uses, right? Because where it says it has minimal impact on adjacent properties because the site plan specific, you know, it might have an impact if there's something in there that, you know, you hear all the time. You know what I mean? Or also, it makes it real clear that new conditional zoning, where it says if it's site plan specific, you know, whatever they firmly plan on using. Anyway, I was just, it's kind of confusing.
It's my understanding that includes uses.
Maybe Mr. Todd could speak to that.
Okay. Mr. Todd, did you want to address Dennis's comment, a question?
Yeah, the statement there is referring to, again, the site plan that's before you, development, any changes to this site plan would have to come back through the board. So you would see no new buildings out here. Now, granted, they could tear this building down and build one 10% bigger, but that's it. They're not going to be able to come up here and build an 8,000 square foot building. It's got to match this plan, or they would come back before the board. As far as the use aspect, as the application sits before us right now, it's the uses that were submitted with the application.
Yes, briefly, Mr. Parker.
If they put a race shop in there, we don't get to object, because any of the uses can go in any of the buildings. It doesn't matter which one. On the other hand, if you turn this down and a race shop wants to come along, all they have to do is come before you and ask for a modification. That's all they have to do.
Mr. Chairman, can I ask for a clarification? Now, I've heard we can only vote this proposal up or down. I've heard we can modify it to exclude what Mr. Parker showed us in red. Can either Mr. Todd or Mr. Pope explain what our options are at this point?
The statutes do require that any conditions that the board decides to add on top of what they submitted, that they have the right to say that they're okay with that condition.
You're talking about the petitioner.
Applicant.
Yeah.
Applicant. So if the board chooses to kick out a use, the applicant actually has to agree with that.
to vote it up or down.
Yes. And where is the applicant relative to the red?
Mr. Moritz?
He's not the applicant.
Mr. Chairman, can I ask a question in response?
You're out of order.
I have a question.
We have Commissioner asking questions right now. If you'll just please have a seat. You're out of order right now. A Commissioner speaking.
Yes, sir. Your question again, please.
As I understand it, we either can vote this up as it's been presented, down as it's been presented, or we could vote to approve it if we were to exclude the items marked in red that was presented by Mr. Parker and the homeowners, and the various homeowners. We could approve it with those items in red, in red excluded, but only if you approve. If you say no, it's either all or nothing, then we have to vote all or nothing. So I'm asking you, would you be willing to say that we could vote on this with the items in red excluded?
Well, first off, we haven't had a chance to even really look at that, but I will say this. What seems to be forgotten in a lot of the comments is we're not looking to we're taking 224 uses and reducing the 38. We have gone to great lengths to make sure we follow protocol. We came in with 65 uses out of the 224. We met with planning staff. We reduced that down and reduced that down after the public meeting, and here's where we are. Again, we want it to stay aviation, but we have no guarantee that the runway will be serviceable or there whenever it's time to sell the property. So I would say at this point in time, we feel like we followed the proper protocol to include the public meeting, and we feel like these uses are appropriate.
If I may expand on that, a point that's been discussed throughout this process is the safety matters. And I think there's really a fifth option here, which is we discuss any truly specific concerns, and safety's concern we've discussed, and is something are willing to look at some sort of way forward to take care of that concern. So I think there's more options than just up, down, or accept the offer which the homeowners are now proposing after various various unwillingness to budge off of aviation related only.
I'm sorry, I have to take the legal advice of our counsel and our staff on that, and what they're telling me is it's either up, down, or if I were to make a proposal to exclude what's in red, then we could vote on that. Those are the three options, as I understand it. Is that correct, Mr. Pope?
If the applicant approved.
Say again, if the applicant approved it.
Right.
That is correct.
Well, I would suggest there's an additional option, and that would be a motion to table this matter to allow the parties to discuss what points of common agreement they have, and then to determine whether or not there is room for compromise to be able to come up with a mutually acceptable approach. One of the gentlemen said earlier that it's unfortunate that it's either up or down when a middle course would probably be preferable for all the parties concerned. What concerns me is that you have a hodgepodge of different uses here that it would be makes sense to bring them into conformity and uniformity certainly for the business. It would also make sense for the business to be able to have the flexibility to be able to configure its facilities and uses consistent with the ultimate use, which from what I gather from the majority of folk that have spoken is that they view your activity as it currently exists to be that of a good corporate citizen and a benefit to the South Iredell community, both economically and otherwise. And so I think that you can achieve some additional benefit for your current operation and give it more flexibility going forward. But when I look at, on the other side, the multiple uses that are proposed, particularly the ones that involve public invitees, dance studios, taekwondo, whatever, that's going to have the general public driving down basically across a taxiway, unfamiliar with the rules of the road when you're dealing with aircraft, that just sets up, while it may be an unlikely event, if there is an event, it is likely to be a catastrophic event. And that is not a situation that I think any of us would want to countenance or open the door to. So it seems to me that and there's also issues relative to some legal issues that I would like a little more clarification on from our attorney relative to the conditional use permitting of activities which are really speculative in nature as opposed to actually planned. So if there is a inclination on the parties to engage in that discussion, then I believe that we could entertain a motion to table this matter until the next meeting of this board, and then to review whether or not we have agreement or whether we need to proceed with an up or down vote on what the members of this board in their best belief seems to be correct.
It was my understanding that some of these that are listed in red were going to be excluded. So I was a little surprised at that.
Mr. Nowry, if it please the board, in quick consultation with my clients, we had no objection to your proposal. We think it's excellent. I did give the red list to these gentlemen a month ago, except it was yellow instead of red. They used red for my stoplight theme. They've seen this. We're delighted. We believe that they will negotiate with us in good faith. We appreciate the direction of the chair.
Mr. Chairman, excuse me. Go ahead, John. I've got one question for the IMAX people. Can you run your business and continue to operate your business if you did not have access to that runway?
We could not.
You could not. Okay. What guarantees you the use of that runway right now?
We have a easement in place that is a mutual easement, and, well, oops. A taxiway is a mutual easement for, well, we granted the HOA and its members an easement to the taxiway, both for aircraft as well for pedestrian traffic. They have a walking trail down through there. The children ride the bikes along that taxiway in question. We've seen four-wheelers running down through there. And we gave them that in exchange for an easement to that runway that allows us to egress and regress with aircraft traffic in and out of there. A concern we have, though, is that that runway is under a conservation easement. As was pointed out, that there can be no further development that's greater than just a runway. But there's no requirement there that a runway be maintained there. So can it go away? Yes. Is that going to go away because someone built something on it? Probably unlikely. But one thing we've learned is we need to best prepare to protect our obligations to our customers, is that can be very significant. And one thing we talked about earlier, and amongst some of the planning staff and with those involved, is some sort of safety caveat that for these uses where safety is of a concern, that they only be permitted upon presentation and approval of a safety plan that minimizes or limits any commingling of vehicle and pedestrian traffic with aircraft, and that plan must be approved by the fire marshal or its successor entity or whomever y'all so choose in order to allow, because it's all about best use. The best use is, of course, not a taekwondo or CrossFit studio, but that is a use. That's something we can put in there if we have to get out of there until we can find somebody that's willing to invest the capital assets or to have that business model that's going to make an aviation business go there. It keeps that property invested in. And that's our concerns, those short holdovers. Because once you lose a property, I think there's a property down here on Poth Road that's set completely vacant, a great parcel that's gone nowhere because it can't. And so if the board would consider an additional option being the consideration of that safety plan, we would like to offer that for their consideration if they would so desire. Thank you.
If it pleases the board, we'd be happy to discuss the safety plan. Delighted to, and bring it back to this board.
Mr. Chairman, if I may, I've been sitting here quietly taking notes through the evening. I would like to point out something. In the 2004 rezoning, which Mr. Norman and I believe were present, it was not so much the application at that time as it was, and please forgive me, I do not wish to speak ill of those who've gone before us, but this board had lost complete confidence in Dr. Wilson to fulfill commitments he had made. And that is really the genesis of a lot of the misunderstanding that's before us tonight. That, quite frankly, he marketed that as a residential air park, and once he developed that residentially, he began to market as a commercial aviation enterprise. No one here tonight is responsible for that. It's just the way the matter evolved. Since I was present at, I think, every proceeding involved in this thing, I do not want to get something to get lost in these proceedings, and that was what Mr. Porter brought up earlier. It was a condition in the previous rezoning that there be a berm around that property, and when I walked over that property, that berm is yet to be built. Mr. Todd, I'd like for you to go back and review the minutes, if you would, and see if that condition, I don't think I'm imposing anything of great financial detriment to anybody, but if that's what we said was our intent, we ought to follow through on that. I know that Mr. Porter's property could be adversely affected by that. I believe the condition we had to be a berm between any commercial property and anything that remained residential at that time, I believe was the condition. Some of these, you have a whole menu of possible exclusions here. I did not have as much heartburn with some of them as I did with others, as I mentioned in a private conversation, and these gentlemen graciously agreed to concede on one point. I had particular concern of where there's a great deal of traffic arriving simultaneously on the property. I don't know that spinning ballerinas and spinning propellers are necessarily a good mix for those types of activities you want to be especially careful about. I'll be perfectly honest with you. I do think it's a worthwhile endeavor, and I agree with what the gentleman said earlier. It would be a great misfortune for this thing not to be approved because we could not seek some common ground. And I was really just struggling in my own mind whether to deny these gentlemen the opportunity to continue to operate business over some matters that are a remote possibility, but nevertheless, as our chairman said, should they occur, would be somewhat catastrophic. So I'll support the option of delaying this. I think it would be the prudent thing to do at this point.
If I can just, I'll support that motion also. I just want to add that it was my intent, and I would like to be able to broaden or help the gentleman at IOMAX if they need some broader categories a little bit so that they can remain viable. I mean, they've relocated, they've brought jobs, and I certainly want people who come here and employ folks to feel like we're your friend when you came here, we're your friend once you're here. You know, the fact that this is part of an exit strategy, you know, makes it a little bit harder to support. But I was prepared to broaden the cases some. So as far as, you know, what I would advise to the neighbors is don't take this on, you can just shut them down. My intent would be to help a business do anything that they can to provide jobs. That being said, this is off Perth Road. Perth Road is a 2-lane curvy road that is over capacity now. It's got 2 bridges on it. It will never be widened to 4 lanes in any of our lifetimes. And I just saw that, you know, we got subdivisions planned coming down Perth Road. All I can say is that access onto Perth Road isn't really a great one for stuff where you can have 20 or 30 students coming into a dance studio or karate shop or something like that, or even tow trucks bringing in cars that need to be repaired. So, you know, that being said, I think we need to be respectful with the fact that it is a residential area. It's going to be a residential area, and it's going to be a residential area on a road that's over capacity, and that overcapacity is not going to get fixed anytime soon, and I mean in decades. Okay, so that's my intent, and if you need a motion to table this and send this back to staff and the parties, then Mr. Johnson, did you want to make that motion, or do you want me to make it? And I say let's vote. Let him.
It doesn't matter. My greatest concern is for any activity where a number of people would be arriving simultaneously. I have less problem with, quite frankly, with some of the warehousing storage where they would not be arriving simultaneously.
Like a welding shop, I don't see that necessarily bad.
And I do think you have to leave these gentlemen some latitude.
I agree.
As far as the marketability of their property. But I would go ahead. You can
I
make
believe
a motion.
that if someone will make a motion to table the matter until our next regularly scheduled meeting date, which I believe is the 3rd.
Mr. Chair, could we ask that you put that past February 9th and skip a meeting? Give us more time. Quite frankly, my trial schedule was pretty dense.
I would prefer that we do this the next meeting. We've already been delayed once. Now we're here again tonight. I'd like to go to the next meeting and decide this. Please, sir.
I don't know if I can negotiate with these gentlemen. I will do my utmost, however.
We have travel plans as well, and also surgery plans. So
there's a motion on the floor.
No, I didn't make a motion.
I'm going to make a motion.
Go ahead.
Mr. Chairman, I offer a motion that we continue this public hearing to our first meeting in February.
Motion has been made. Any further discussion? No further discussion. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, like sign.
No.
Motion carries 4-1. Thank you. We will take this matter up for an up or down vote at our next meeting.
thank you, sir.
We're going to take a 5-minute recess.
Yes, sir.
Okay, at this time, we will resume with the regular order and come to order. Mr. Smith, if you could summarize the items, the administrative matters on the consent agenda, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The first item that we have is B under public hearings, and the request was to approve proposed installment contract financing to refinance remaining debt obligations, and this was for the May 1, 2006 installment finance agreement. And then under administrative matters, there was a request from Solid Waste to approve a landfill gas agreement and a site lease with Iredell Transmission, LLC. A request from Solid Waste to approve budget amendment number 24 and accept grant funds from NC Air Quality, and this was to replace a vehicle, a more efficient vehicle. Item D, request from administration for approval of a land lease to Cornerstone of Victory Church to be used for recreational fields. E, a request from the Planning Division to consider approval to apply for the 2015 Single-Family Rehabilitation Loan Pool Program. E, or F, I'm sorry, request from Ecom for approval of a sole source award and signature on a 5-year agreement with Motorola Solutions to provide 911 network services. G, request from Emergency Management to adopt the Iredell-Rowan Regional Hazard Mitigation Plan and a resolution. H, a request from Tax Administration for approval of the December refunds and releases. And I, request for approval of the December 12th and 16th, 2004 minutes.
Are there any further discussion on the consent agenda? Is there a motion to approve?
Motion to approve, Mr. Chairman.
The motion is on the floor by the Vice Chairman Norman. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Those opposed, like sign. Motion carries unanimously. There are no announcements of any vacancies occurring on any boards or commissions. We have one appointment to a board and commission relative to the Centralina Economic Development Commission. Mr. Rob Carney, is there any discussion?
Motion to approve, Mr. Carney.
So moved. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, like sign. Motion carries unanimously. Is there any unfinished business to come before the commission? This is a public comment period. We have 2 individuals signed up. Mr. Kirk Sherrill, note that you have a 5-minute, I believe, 3-minute limit.
Yeah.
It better be plastic.
Good evening. Thank you, Chairman and Commissioners, for your time. This is plastic. This is real grass. I had a few people that were going to be, can you hear me? Had a few people that were going to come tonight. Kelly, she's at Duke University. She's unable to make it. Her son had 2 grand mal seizures last week. She's unable to obtain cannabis oil. She's at Duke University now. She's participating in a program where they're having some success. Some are not having such success. These are controlled studies. North Carolina passed a hemp bill recognizing the medical benefits of cannabis last term. What we're going to do here in the next few months is create some awareness and ask that you acknowledge that this plant has medical benefits, industrial uses. A company just came into Asheville's up to 60,000 units, going on $250,000. We have hemp in South Carolina to our south. It's legal to grow this plant with 0 THC in South Carolina. Our farmers need help. We're full of genetically modified plants. We're asking that we pass a resolution here. One of you introduce it to acknowledge the medical benefits. Also, another lady was going to come here to speak tonight, but she's too sick. She's got stage 4 cancer, and she's also a cannabis patient. She's not a criminal. Our government has patents on this plant, 6630507 for the record, that says it's the powerful antioxidants and neuroprotectants. It's also Schedule 1, meaning it has no medical accepted uses. I ask you, Chairman, if your government has a medical cannabis patent and it's registered as Schedule 1 with no accepted medical uses, can we agree there's a dichotomy?
I'm not going to respond to a rhetorical question.
Okay. So anyway, what we want to do is create awareness. It's a stigma that's associated with the plant. I had dinner with Tom Tillis recently. He said, Kirk, it's the North Carolinians, they accept, I don't know why they accept opiate extracts, but they don't accept cannabis extracts. And that's the stigma associated with this plant, the evilness. And that's the stereotype we need to change. And I would ask that y'all take a look at cannabis, sativa, and look at the medical benefits for yourself before I come back in next time with actual patients and other people that want to participate in the cannabis billion-dollar market. Thank you for your time, and look forward to hearing back what you had to say. And Tommy, a pleasure to talk to you. And there's people out there needing this plant. It's already passed a medical bill, so let's create some awareness and stop arresting patients now. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Sherrill. I'll oblige you to create some awareness by directing you to report to the deputy sheriff with your baggie. Okay. The next person that is signed up for the public comment period is Faye Daniels.
My name is Faye Daniels, and I retired. Can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
I'm hoarse too.
You may want to pull the microphone a little closer to you.
How about me?
Much better.
Can you hear it? Okay. I'm Faye Daniels, and I retired from the Dare County Board of Education and moved to Statesville 10 years ago. I'm 72, don't care about smoking pot, but if others wish to, that's their choice. After all, I enjoy a glass of wine. I take hemp oil every day for good health and want the opportunity to take cannabis oil high in CBD for optimal health. It took an inner ear virus 3 years ago, leaving me with dizziness and balance issues to start my researching. I am a believer and a supporter. Just do your own researching. I have told all my doctors and specialists that if they tell me that I have cancer, I will go to the nearest state where it is legal for my treatment of choice. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Daniels. Is there anyone else in the audience that would like to avail themselves of the public comment period? Thank you. I will now declare the public comment period closed. Is there any new business to come before the commission, Mr. Smith?
No, sir.
No. Any commissioners? No. They're hearing none. Mr. Smith, if you could give us your county manager's report.
Thank you. Just two things very quickly. The first is we are going to basically kick off our budget process officially, I suppose, this Friday. We are going to have a department heads planning retreat of sorts. It's going to be from 9 to 2 at the Unity Center, which was dedicated today. And this is just going to be an opportunity for me, as well as several other of the county leaders, staff leaders, to give information to the department heads so they can begin to look at our budget process from a big picture perspective. I think it always helps us to prepare on the front end for when we get to you all and towards the end of the process. So we're going to be doing that on Friday. The second item I'd like to mention is our Board of Commissioners retreat. I think we've settled on a date, for March 6th and 7th. The 6th is a Friday and 7th is a Saturday. And the one conflict is Chairman Mallory is going to be basically, you're in court that day. And what I would suggest is that we just start later. By the end of a 8 to 5 day of retreating, usually it's a pretty long day anyway. If we could start at 11 or possibly even lunch, start with a working lunch of sorts and go through 5 and then come back on Saturday, I think we will achieve what we need to achieve, if that's okay with everyone.
I think 11 o'clock would be sufficient time, at least for me.
We have not secured a site yet, but I'll let you know as soon as we can. We needed a date first. And that's all I have.
Thank you. At this time, we will be moving into closed session to consider the items that were added earlier and the adjustment to the agenda. goodness, we're not getting late.
Hold it, it's a red light.
We have completed our closed session. Does anything need to be reported out, Mr. Smith, relatively?
You have we need to have a motion and a second on the setting the public hearing for the economic.
Okay, is there a motion?
Yeah, I have it, Mr. Chairman. I offer a motion to call for a public hearing on February 3rd, 2015, at 7 p.m. regarding an economic development incentive of $79,445 over a five-year period for Project Galahad, based on a $5 million investment in Iredell County.
Motion by Commissioner Johnson. Any discussion? Discussion? All in favor, please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, like sign. Motion carries unanimously. Is there any further business? Okay. Motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Okay. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Take care.